Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We had a bit of a switch up in the crew. We got Jay restreaming now, and I'm tagging in just temporarily for Fizzle as host. My name is Danny, and we are about to see some Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide. But first, just a quick reminder, we are here this weekend raising money for the Liam Foundation, a charity based out of Rockford, Illinois, that supports the LGBTQIA plus community. They are an amazing group of people, some of the kindest, most compassionate, hardworking folks. We've had the pleasure of having our third, this is our third summer marathon, and we've worked with them every summer, and they are genuinely a joy to work with. So if you would like to support the cause, exclamation donate in the chat will give you the link to do so. We have some incentives still coming up that haven't quite been met. If you'd like to put your donation towards those, the link to the schedule is there. You can check it. With that said, I'm going to shush so we can get this run started. So please, a round of applause or whatever it is you do in Twitch chat for One Free Fits and Taco Mage. They're going to be our comms for this run. Show's all yours, y'all.
Thanks for that introduction, Danny. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Taco Mage, and this is Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide. With me is one free Fitz. How are we doing today, Fitz?
We are waking up. We are excited, even though our voice might not communicate that. But yeah, excited to watch some Worlds Collide race action and call it with you in the booth. So what kind of flags are we looking at today?
Well, today we've actually got a draft race that was crafted by Knuckly Kong and Zelfer. A draft race in Worlds Collide, basically what happens is that you get a bot that takes the base flag set that we use for racing, which is called the Ultras League flag set, and then you basically get choices of ways to change it. So, for instance, you could have like Terra as a starting character with Magitech, or you could have something like all item shops are empty. So you choose through so many rounds of that, and then it builds a seed based on those choices. So we've got a crafted one that they went through to make it kind of interesting. And the big highlights of it really are that there is an additional criteria for finishing that is to have defeated 15 bosses. But there is a skip available, and you can actually see this on three of the four screens right now, that you get KT skip, which lets you finish or skip most of the final dungeon at 12 bosses. So you're guaranteed, and I said 15 before, I should have said 16, I apologize, but at 12 bosses you get the skip available. Now, after skip, there are 4 bosses you fight before going into the final Kafka. So you'd think, oh yeah, I get 12 bosses. I just head right in and do those 4. Not quite, because we also have the flag random bosses. There are 3 flags. One is original bosses. All the bosses are in their normal location. Shuffled bosses, which you take all the bosses, put them in a big stack, and then just deal them out to the boss location. And random bosses, where all the bosses go into a table, and every boss location, you just roll on that table, and you get the box. You get whatever boss, and there are duplicates. Duplicate bosses do not count for defeating 16 bosses. It has to be 16 unique bosses. So there's a bit of a push your luck here. So they have to decide, okay, do I go in at 12 bosses and hope, or do I go in at 13? Maybe you're not feeling so confident and you go in at 14. So we're going to see a little bit of play there of when they actually decide to utilize that skip, because they are all going to get it. So yeah, that's basically the kind of race that we're going for today. But I'm going to hand it over for Fitz real quick if you want to just kind of explain what Worlds Collide is as a randomizer. And then I think we can get started.
And so Worlds Collide is an open world randomizer for Final Fantasy VI. And so this means we're starting with the airship, and we have access to the 2 worlds that are collided: World of Ruin, World of Balance. Additionally, we're working with the character gated settings, and so what this is going to mean is that the dungeons are events that we can go to that potentially can provide us with a character, Esper, or high tier item. Those are all based on a certain character's story beats during the game. And so, for instance, if we have Cyan in the party, That's going to unlock the siege at Doma in World of Balance. It unlocks the Mount Zozo area in World of Ruin, and then the Doma Dream sequence in World of Ruin. So generally, we are going to see runners get some stuff, start trying to get more characters and espers, well, the whole time kind of planning in advance, how am I going to beat that final boss, collecting the power and gear that we'll need along the way.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to start getting our runners ready to go here. So give us about 30 seconds and we'll get started. Just don't want to like surprise them. So yeah. Anyway, so let me just type in Discord to get them started here. All right.
Yeah, and I would expect we are starting with Umaru, which is always a crowd favorite. Our favorite uncontrollable character that just hits stuff real hard.
Yeah. Schwantz was really excited to see the Umaro start. He loves Umaro. Probably one of the favorite characters of the Schwantz if I were to pick anyone. All right, so we are getting going. And so we're going to enter into what's called the looting phase. So at the beginning of every Worlds Collide seed, there's about 10 minutes, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, where you're just going to be looking for the things that you need to get started. And that's going to be items for the most part, but also looking for things like, some starting espers to get your magic going. So we're seeing on Knuckly Kong's side a very classic start, which is to go right into World of Balance Narsh. Your airship starts right there, so it's pretty easy to just land and head on in. There are a bunch of items on the right-hand side that you can just jump on into. And then there's also shops, so it's a pretty common first go. Meanwhile, we've got a Returner's Hideout play by Zelfer there. Also, a lot of item density there, and there is one shop to check out. So that's also a very common play. On Drinks Glue's side, you're seeing a very interesting opening play, which is to go right for Setzer's first check, which is a free check. You can just walk up and do it. But there's a chance of it being something, and it indeed was. It was a character. It looks like the Schwantz is doing that as well. So that's an interesting first step, because when you get things in Worlds Collide, it increases scaling. And what scaling is it's the levels and the life and the experience of all the enemies in the game. So by taking a free check, you're increasing scaling without increasing directly the power of your party. So your party starts level 3, you're still level 3, but now everything else in the world with this scaling, I believe, is like level 10. So it's a little bit of a balancing act to not take too much at the beginning.
Yeah, I was just peeking on our settings here, and it looks like that scaling is based on checks and not. I think our default is usually as we acquire character espers or dragons, that's what triggers.
Yeah, so this is
go up.
Yep. Yeah, so this is a checks one. So everything that they do increases scaling, not just if it gives them something. So anything that can lead to progression, which is a character, an esper, or a key item, not a key item, sorry, a high tier item, counts as a check. So that can be whether or not it's a free check or not. In normal flag sets, if you do something that's a check, but you get an item, it doesn't increase scaling, but that's not the case here.
Yeah. And then I'm just kind of looking at, a couple other things I think that caught my eye is the tiered shops is very interesting. That usually overall reduces the power we might be used to finding here. What that tiering does is it puts all the stuff in the game into tiers, and so when it's randomizing the shops, the percent of items that are placed are based on that tier. And it's been a while since I looked at the math, but I want to say our S tier items, your experience eggs, your Illuminas, we got a pretty low, I want to say like less than 1% chance of seeing that in a shop somewhere, versus the more common stuff. So I've just from playing it, one thing to me that is not necessarily intuitive is it can be a little bit harder to find earrings as a relic in our shops. They're a lot more common under like the normal settings, and so I'll be curious to see if our runners steer away from the shops if they choose to shop in the Coliseum by using the Yeti to fight stuff and obtain rewards, because I do see we have a bonus to get plus 20 to all of our offensive stats, which I'm assuming is vigor, magic, speed.
Yeah, vigor, magic, and speed if they win a Coliseum match. I would imagine with Umaru in the party, we're going to see that from all the racers. That's just a lot of upfront power. And since Yeti is like the king of the Coliseum because he can only use the fight command or one of his rush commands, there's really no reason not to do it. It's fast, and that, 20 in all stats doesn't maybe sound like a lot, but it's actually really impactful, especially for magic power. That magic power is one of those stats that I think stays very important throughout the course of the run because so many things depend on magic.
Yeah, indeed, and it's really a nuance of those, all of those formulas that work behind the scenes to make the numbers pop up, and then in the magic damage formula, our magic stat is squared and then multiplied times level. And I'm like simplifying it a little bit, but versus physical damage, vigor is still factored in there, but it's our level that's squared in the formula. And so we'll often see that magic feels very powerful early, and then it just doesn't scale the same way throughout the course of the seed. It still gets stronger as we level up, but it's much more magic stat dependent versus if we have a physical character, swinging a big sword, they really need to get levels to start seeing those good damage numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing to really think about, depending on what kind of seed you're playing and what kind of levels you're going to be getting, the physical attacks by and large are a lot faster than magic. So if you're doing comparable damage with physical attacks, you'll start to see a lot of teams kind of move away from using too many magic attacks towards the tail end of a seed. Just because from a quickness of battle standpoint, you're saving so much time every time you use the fight command instead of casting a spell. Oh, there's earrings and Atlas armlets in the same shop. Where was that? Was that Sen? Nope, that's actually in World of Ruin, South Figaro. So they've probably all seen that. So that's two of the most important things that you want to find during the looting phase here is mostly earrings, but also the Atlas armlet, which is earrings for attack. And the way those work is that earrings just give you a straight up, I think it's 25% boost to damage, and the earrings stack. So 2 earrings, and they stack multiplicatively, so 2 earrings is something like 56.25 or whatever it is, percent increased magic damage. Atlas armlet does that for attack, but you can only use one of them. And then there's also hero rings, which if you find them in the shop are super expensive, but they're always a good thing to find in a chest or something. Hero rings do both. They are an earring and an Atlas armlet in one. So they're nice and flexible. If you've got a couple of those, it means you can pivot a character more easily without necessarily needing to unequip them. All right, so we are now 7 minutes-ish in, so we should be starting to come up into some checks here other than just checking sets are here. We're still seeing a lot of looting happening. They must not have found anything very, very good. I haven't seen anything that really caught my eye. I have a couple of smaller things like a gauntlet. Oh, somebody did find an Atmo weapon. Drinks Glue found an Atmo weapon somewhere, so that's good. Unfortunately, Atmo weapon is one of those things that in the looting phase, you're looking really for 2 things. You're looking for something to get you going and looking for something that's going to be your end game. Sometimes those are the same item, like an Illumina. Or earrings. Earrings are something that you're going to throw on a magic user or somebody who's got a skill that is based off magic, and you're just going to leave the earrings on the whole game, pretty much. Atmo Weapon is one of those that only falls in the latter category. The Atmo Weapon does basically nothing at the beginning of the game. At the end of the game, it's one of those S-tier weapons that can be your entire offense in one character. Atmo Weapon with an offering in about 50 levels, you can just about have that carry you all the way through the final boss without needing anybody else, other than maybe some support. So it looks like we are getting some Coliseum plays. I think I saw the Schwantz do it, or maybe that was Zelfer, I forget. But now we've got Drinks Glue going in now, looking to see if there's anything tasty in there. Not seeing much. There's an Aegis Shield for a tonic, which is a pretty good trade. I would definitely do that, especially with the Yeti on my team. Although Ursus is a little bit spicy. Ursus has incredibly high evasion. That said, if Umaro does a charge attacks ignore evasion, so that's really what he's looking for. Oh, and it's a reset for Drinks Glue. He didn't want to sit through that. That's fair. Could be a pretty big time loss waiting for Umaro to hit the Ursus. So probably go in and do something else like a smaller trade or something. Yep, now we got Knuckly Kong there as well, taking down a Parasol. And it looks like there must have been a typo in my infographic that we had on the background. It's plus 10 to all offensive stats. So it's magic power, vigor, and speed. But again, even though it's not 2010 is still impactful, especially, again, for magic, where you're getting actually a square of that in increased spell damage. Meanwhile, we got Zelfer heading into one of the free checks, which is Sabin's World of Ruin Tsen, the Collapsing House, and he finds something that you really want to find, especially if you've got an Atmo up on the table. That is Katana Soul. So I'll toss that over to Fitz. Why do we want to see Katana Soul when you've got an Atmo weapon?
So Katana Soul drops the relic we've mentioned called Offering. What that does is it change our fight from a 1-hit to a 4-hit. There is some damage reduction in that, so most weapons we generally don't use it because it's kind of a longer animation, and it's not worth like the damage boost if it's I gotta have like a Sky Render sword. However, certain weapons that have kind of special damage calculations, because of like the order of the operations in the algorithm, they don't suffer as much from that damage penalty. And the big three are going to be our Valiant Knife, our Atmo Weapon, and the ever divisive Fixed Dice, the weapon of pure randomness. And the kind of reason for that is like after the like offering penalty is calculated, the like bonus damage from the special formulas are added after that, and so it's really only reducing the like regular swing damage, and then each swing has like the bonus calculation put on top of it. So from like a speed perspective, we do have that one Atmo weapon, and so we want to see the offering. Now Katana Soul can be a little bit rough. We have some cheese that we can use. We get them confused, they will use an instant death attack on themselves, and it's a pretty easy fight. However, otherwise, if we have to kind of hit them down, they kind of have a lot of hit points. The other thing they'll do is drop a big pile of gold. I think at level 3 it's still like 30,000 gold, so it'll fund some of our shopping for a while.
So we are seeing a little bit of a join together here with all three of Drinks Glue, the Schwantz, and Zelfer heading through the Imperial camp. It's a great early game check because all of the fights here are what are called fixed encounters. So fixed encounters are like what you would call normal fights. In Worlds Collide, they're randomized, but they can only be normal enemies. They can't be bosses or anything. So except for like a few very noteworthy exceptions, most of the standard fights that you're going to run into are pretty safe, especially early in the game when you don't have a lot of scaling against you. They're certainly going to require a lot less damage to bring down, so you're looking for those. So the Imperial Camp is a big one because you get guaranteed 4 fixed battles, and I believe 2 of them are guaranteed to be the same, and then the first one and the last one will be different. And so they're taking this early in order to get some levels to catch back up to any scaling that they got behind on, doing some free checks during the looting phase.
Yeah, and additionally, I saw that I believe boss levels just got a +10 at the beginning of the seed.
That is correct. So bosses start 10 levels ahead, and that applies after scaling. So I think for this flag set, the maximum scaling is 50 levels. So the highest level anything can be in the game is 50, except when you get plus levels. Plus levels applies after that. So bosses could scale all the way up to level 60. So that's kind of important to know that the bosses start off a little extra dangerous and are going to scale a little higher than normal enemies. Also worth noting here is that dragons do not count as bosses. So the dragons aren't scaled an extra 10 levels.
Do they still
Mind
count
if
as
I jump in?
checks? Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry. I just got a donation, and apparently one of our runners snuck it in real quick before y'all dropped the gate. $25 from the Swans7, who says, "Big shout out to the entire Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide randomizer community for not just being an awesome friendly place, but also having lots of dogs in them. Hopefully we can show off some great stuff. What is everyone's favorite Final Fantasy VI moment?" Also, quick reminder before we get answers, we have about 30 minutes left. Right now, Saving Sid is in the lead. If you want to add to that, please do. If you would like to see them not save Sid, you're gonna have to donate towards it. But like I said, 30 minutes left on that, and we have to cut it off and let the runners know. Also, about $30 left till we meet the incentive for the Metroid Planets run. That is up next. So if you'd like to donate to either one of those, exclamation donate in the chat. That'll help you do it. And I'm gonna just scooch back into my corner and let you go back to commentating.
awesome. All right. Favorite Final Fantasy moment for me? So I'm going to say, honestly, it's a weird one. It's not going to be what people would expect, but there is a line in Final Fantasy VI as you're going through the locks part of there's a part where you split off into 3 different kind of quest lines or story arcs. There is a guard who's guarding Celis, and he's dreaming, and the thing that he says is, some bread too. For some reason, that has always stuck with me, and I have just loved it. It's so weird. Like, what could this guy possibly be dreaming about? How about you, Fitz? What's your favorite Final Fantasy moment? Oh, he looks like Fitz is having audio issues. We'll get that from him later. Anyway, back to what we're going on in the race right now. It looks like we got two of the... Oh, and both of them taking a reset at the Falls. The Falls is a very quick check that's very close to the Imperial camp. So it's very common to see when you have Sabin in your party, do 3 of Sabin's checks all kind of in the same area, which is the Imperial camp, then to the Falls, and then sometimes you'll see a check at Phantom Woods, where you would normally get on the Ghost Train. You can check that really quick, and you can do what's called peeking it. A peek in Worlds Collide is some of the checks will tell you we're going to show you what you're going to get before you do them. So like, if you're looking at Imperial, or actually Drinks Glue is a good one here because he's about to do a peekable. This is the collapsing house that we saw done earlier, but the sprite that you see holding up the house to the left of the doorway, if that sprite is a character, that's the character that you're going to get from completing that check. And there are other checks where if you see a character, you know you're going to get a character. If you see generally a shop owner, I think a soldier or a ghost, then it's going to be either an Esper or an item. So there are lots of peekable checks. One of them being that the ghost train. If you go to the right when you get on the ghost train, where you would normally pick up the temporary ghost, the reward for the train is going to be there. So you're either going to see a character or you're going to see something that's going to be an item or an esper. So it's often to go run over there, check it real fast, and if it's not something that you need, you can reset out of it, load into your previous save, and not have to do the train, because it's a bit of a longer check. But if you go in there and it's a character and you really need a character, you're probably going to finish off the train. We can see some checks here on Monster in a Boxes. And you can see Drinks Glue has found Katana Soul, so he's probably feeling really excited about that with the Atmo weapon in the item pool. Otherwise, we're just kind of crossing over a little bit. Looks like we do have the Schwantz, who just took out a dragon, going up for another dragon at the top of World of Ruin Narsh. So, in this flag set, there's another kind of optional quest that you can do, which is if you kill 2 dragons, you get a Dragoon set. A Dragoon set is a 1 powerful lance. I think it could be one of 3. It should be the R Lance, the Pearl Lance, and I think the Partisan. It can be one of those, and then you get a Boots, and then you get a Dragon Horn. And that allows your character to, instead of using the fight command, use the jump command. And with the Dragon Horde, the jump command will land between 2 and 4 times, doing the same amount of damage each time. So it's actually quite powerful, especially in the end game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and additionally, that jump command, we get bonus damage if we're jumping with a sword. I think is like a 1.25x multiplier. A spear, 1.5x. Or is it 2?
I think it's 2 with a spear, and I think it's 1.5 with a sword or other weapon.
And so that can really boost a physical damage output. Additionally, if someone can equip fixed dice, we can be a dice jumper. And that is the main thing that brings is we don't have to watch the animation time of throwing the dice out and seeing what they are. Because it's just them jumping with seemingly nothing in their hands. But they're actually throwing dice down from the sky. Yeah, and what I imagine is pretty funny to see firsthand.
Landing on somebody with they must be D4s, really, because that's going to hurt if somebody lands on you with a handful of D4s. I guess the important thing there is that it kind of negates the big downside of fixed dice, which fixed dice offering is another way to just throw out tons of damage, but it is probably the slowest way to do a lot of damage, other than maybe spamming Ultima. But Dragoon jumping completely bypasses that. So Dragoon dice is a very popular way to get a lot of offense, especially towards the beginning and middle of the game, if you can put it together.
Indeed. Yeah, and I'm seeing Zelfer here showing off some good game knowledge. There are a lot of enemies in Final Fantasy VI that are undead. Like, a good guideline is, if it looks undead, it probably is. And therefore, items like Phoenix Downs or Revivifies are going to be a one-shot KO for those sort of enemies. We do have a flag that's usually on for the undead bosses. They lose that undead status, and what this means is, for some of them that didn't have a hard-coded immunity to instant death, the main one being Ghost Train and the second phase of the Senior Behemoth fight, those we can use instant death on and take them down fairly quickly. Haiden is weirdly different because they are undead in the vanilla game, but for whatever reason, they also have the instant death immunity on them, and so if we take away their zombie status, they still have that protection.
Yeah, and on the NucleCon screen, if you were watching there, we saw that the Phantom Train, the progression here was actually Golem. So he's definitely going to do the train for Golem. Golem is one of the 2 most important espers in the game from an endgame standpoint, Golem and Fenrir being the top 2. Those both provide something called calmness protection. During the 3rd phase of the final boss, there is the final attack of Sleep, which is one of the two-part bosses. When he dies, he casts Calmness. Calmness is a physical-based, evasion-ignoring attack that will cause instant death on whatever party member it hits. Now, it can be blocked. It cannot normally be evaded unless you evade stack, which you can get your evade high enough. But if you have Fenrir giving your party auto image, or Golem, which just blocks physical attacks until the block pool is up, that will block columnist protection. It will cause columnist protection just to not, or it will cause columnist to just not work. So that's something that if you see when you're running through, you're really excited. Golem, Fenrir, and to a lesser extent, there's also Phantom, which will cast invisibility on your characters, which also prevents that attack from hitting them. Invisibility is a little bit harder to use and requires some very fine timing because invisibility is canceled by any magical attack that hits that character. And we see Doom Gaze for Zelfer at the top of Mount Colts. That is not somebody that you want to see ever.
Disgusting. Tentacles are not great early on to fight. And we have an Ultros. What does that mean? That means something special, right, Taco Manager? I believe you agreed to something.
Yeah, so before this race, I told all of the runners that for every Ultros they killed, and if they all kill the same Ultros, that counts as 4 Ultros. For every Ultros that is killed, I'm going to donate $10 to the Liam Foundation. So that is 1 Ultros. I have marked it on my sheet. I'm expecting that the chat will keep me honest on this one and help me count the Ultroses, but that is definitely first Ultros, and that was at the end of Phantom Train.
Yeah, I saw on Zelfer's screen the the Esper, or the reward for the Mount Colts was the Esper Fenrir. So a couple sources of calmness. If we can find 2, we like that because tier 1 of Final Kefka is real punchy. They punch a lot. They punch pretty hard. And so if we have an extra source of calmness protection, it can make that tier a lot safer, and we can kind of just send it without having to worry about like a counter punch crit one-shotting one of our like front row party members, like an ammo weapon user, because they're going to be in the front row for using that.
Yep, and also worth noting that Atma weapon, the way the Atma weapon works, if you are unfamiliar with Final Fantasy VI, is that you get a bonus to damage based on the square of the character's level in addition to its normal level requirements, and then that bonus damage is actually reduced by a percentage based on based on their life compared to their max life. So if they're at max life, they get the full benefit of that bonus damage, but if they're at low life, it will reduce significantly the percentage of that bonus that they got. So keeping your Atma weapon user topped up is super important in the late game.
We got a mech in the waterfalls. That's kind of awkward.
Yeah, Zelfer and Drinks Glue actually reset out of that fight earlier because he was being really naughty.
Yeah, with the +10 boss levels and just the scaling that I am estimating our runners are at, like Guardian's one of those high hit point bosses that is probably pushing over 10,000 hit points right now.
Easily.
And their first phase, they're not super dangerous. When they go into the Ultros phase, they get a little bit more annoying, and then they're going to slow our entire party. And then it's really when they get into their third battle program is when they start just throwing weapons at us. And just like how throw is a great command for us as a player, it is also a great command for the few bosses and enemies that are able to use it. And by great, I mean great at knocking down one of your party members right away.
Yep. And if we look over at Drink's blue screen, we can see Umaro in the sky. I would like to see some dabs in chat if you have them. Dab as much as you want. We love our dab and Yeti here.
Yeah, a little bit awkward to always see, the Umaro versus Umaro situation. I guess one of them is there. It's like, who's the real Umaro and which one is the imposter? Or there's like a timeline thing going on that, that's like the Umaro of the past before we started the seed that was just roaming wildly, doing their thing.
Yeah, and we can also see Drinks Glue did something pretty interesting here. He actually used Fenrir against Umaro, which is a really good play because Umaro does mostly physical attacks, just like the Umaro on your team. So using Fenrir here essentially gets rid of the most dangerous aspect of the fight, which is just getting hit really hard in the face by the Yeti. So that's a really cool play to make it through that fight. Unfortunately, it is a dead check. Or maybe fortunately, depending on what this item is. Atma weapon. Okay, well,
Take 2.
yeah. Maybe if there's a Genji glove somewhere that will allow whoever has the Genji glove relic equipped, they can equip a weapon in each hand, and you can have an Atma weapon in each hand, and then you can throw the offering on top of that, so you can have 8 attacks off of one character. And if you've got really good level scaling, that can be plenty enough to essentially one-shot pretty much any boss in the game, other than multi-part bosses.
Yeah, and I saw that on Zelfer's side, the Esper at the top of Narsh was actually leader. They were pretty easily able to handle that. Schwann's running into their own Guardian here. They did get through Doomgaze, but I saw it looked like only one party member was up, so that looked like it was a pretty tough Doomgaze fight, but Schwann's was able to navigate that well and get through. And it looks like at the Mog spot for Knuckly Kong, we have a Gao with Morph and Rage.
Did we even randomize this? Rage on Gao? That's not right. Oh, and we've got Shadow at Kefka at Narsh, so that's going to be all the characters Knuckly Kong needs.
Yeah, when you're running a seed, and like, do we like to get a lot of early characters, or would we rather have, like, you know, a few Espers kicking around in our pocket before we start finding those characters?
From a personal approach, I actually prefer to find Espers early, at least 2 or 3, because Espers have a good chance of having a bonus on them. And the bonus, basically, when you equip the Esper on somebody and they gain a level, they get some bonus stats. So if you can get those Espers going before you've collected any levels, you're still at level 3, that's a lot of stats over the course of the game. That said, I don't like to be sitting at like 8 Espers and still looking for my first character. I like to have 3 or 4 Espers and then start finding characters.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like, Knuckly Kong, or maybe fortunately, I feel like sometimes when I unintentionally take one of these fights at Kefka at Narsh, it ends up being like pretty nice. But I remember too, we had a race recently where we had because you can change the percentage of bosses that are in the encounter pool, and so when I messed up this skip, I ended up fighting like Chatternook 3 times in a row in order to get to the boss. Luckily, these are some of those undead that I was talking about earlier, and Knuckly Kong just using their drops of holy water, making it rain on these undead, and being World of Ruin monsters, they offer like a pretty solid amount of experience and magic points for their troubles.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Oh, I just noticed that the Guardian fight, the reward for it was a dead check, but it was an Illumina. So I think both Knuckly Kong and the Schwantz got the Illumina, but Zelfer and Drinksglue both reset out of that fight. So that's going to be interesting. Oh, and we've got Cactrot. Okay, cool. That just drops a whole bunch of money.
And I guess they probably have learned all their Espers. Speaking of Chatternook.
Well, you spoke that one into existence.
That was me. Credit. I'll take it. I did notice when Schwantz checked the equipment permission, none of their characters are able to use that Illumina, so that powerful sword for now is going to sit in our backpack unless we find a character that can use it, or I kind of slept on relic sometimes. The Merit Award, which lets a character not almost use anything. There's a couple of weird exceptions to that, but
I think it allows them to use anything that has the heavy equipment flag, which is all of the knight swords and all of the knight armor, as well as I don't think there's any shield that nobody can use, so I think all shields are just default. As we can see, Knuckly Kong easily taken down Chad.
Ooh, I saw an experience egg come out of
oh yeah,
the Umaro chest down there. That's one I would normally skip if I felt like I had like the power that I was looking for already, but
yeah, that's one of those chests that I actually have a hard time skipping because it's just like 4 steps, and you're like, there could be a boat in that box.
Yeah, and everyone kind of has their own personal like ones like that where it was like, yeah, but this like one time in a race, when I really needed it, it gave me an Illumina, and so now like I will always, go there. For me, it's like the bucket in um, the like South Figaro basement. I think in multi-world it's called Old Man Bucket is the chest name, but that one is like one of those that I just have the like, yeah, one time, there was an Illumina in there, so now I always think there should be.
Yeah, for me, for the longest time was actually the barrel that's at the top of South Figaro that you have to walk along that long path to get to.
Mm-hmm.
The second race I ever took part in, there was an Illumina in that bucket or in that barrel. So that one I had to force myself to stop checking.
Yeah, and I feel like one of our memes is like, well, there's an Illumina in all the chests that you don't open, right? Like,
so this is interesting. We see the Schwantz
Ooh.
on the train as well. So that means he's getting Golem, and we're going to have another Ultros on the Ultros counter here. But also fighting Gigantos, which is a fight that you love to see. Gigantos offers the most experience I think it's per life of any enemy in the game, and is also weak to instant death. So, like, if you've got instant death and you run into Gigantos, it's just a tremendous amount of free XP.
Yes. Now, if we don't, they hit like a truck, and they always counter attacks with 3 of their own, so they can be a little bit of a challenge to get down. But yeah, with both Fenrir Golem out there and the instant death, those are more of like, yes, here's a huge bag of experience for me to punch open. I saw on Zelfer's screen Daryl's Tomb offering just a Thunder Shield. That one will tell us the reward when we check the grave. The only one that is really confusing is when it tells you that Ragnarok sleeps there, because then our runners have to always be like the sword or the Esper.
Yeah, and I don't remember. There is actually a way to know the difference, and I'll admit that I don't know what it. I think one of them has quotes around it, but I don't remember what the difference is. We got some of our community members in chat. I'm sure one of them can give me the down low on how to tell them apart at Daryl's.
Because I know in like the weapon shop, like for Locke, there's like a caps thing that I think like the Esper will be in all caps, and the sword won't be. But I don't think Daryl's Tomb is different. Yeah, we'll see if one of our sages drops some wisdom on us. But yeah, I am always just like, I'm always wanting it to be the Esper, because that's usually the situation I feel like I'm in, and then it's like, typically in that situation, it will be a very hard boss that takes a long time to kill. And then it's like, oh, it's the sword. Cool.
Yeah. So we actually see Knuckly Kong doing something very interesting. He is going to the floating continent, which is, I say, an interesting play because he's got all 6 characters, and 2 of the spots on floating continent are what are called guaranteed progression. That means they can only be an Esper or a character. Now, the reason this is interesting is that Shadow was a very late pull into his party, and the way that the logic works in Worlds Collide is that it is more likely for a seed to be deep than it is to be wide. And by that, it is more likely for your next character to be inside the check of a character that you just collected. So because Shadow was a very recent character collection, it's very likely that one of Shadow's checks is going to have a character in it. So going to the floating continent almost assures that he's going to find a character here. But it may be that he just doesn't like his other options. I do think it is definitely a big gamble, and that if they are all Espers, the payoff is huge. Because he knows that nobody else is going to want to do this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I could also see it would depend on like, well, because Shadow and Gao are kind of clumped together, we're not going to probably really see anyone like only get one of them. And so, yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think sometimes in a race, especially where, you've seen these people race, or you've raced against them potentially in community races or whatnot, you start to get to know kind of where some people like to go and they don't go. And so sometimes doing like what Knuckly Kong is doing and taking a little bit of like a gamble where it's like, ooh, I don't think anyone else is gonna go here. That can pay off big time, because it's like kind of one of the things I enjoy about the rando is like the fastest possible checks is not always the fastest possible path through a seed. And so there's always a little bit of that decision making at any given point. Is like, am I just trying to get the fastest available checks to, and just to hope I get the progression that I want in terms of characters or espers, or as you mentioned, like, do I go back and maybe do one of my early characters slower checks, knowing that I'm more likely to get the esper that I need? Because I know sometimes, like, I've run into that, like, oh, you get a character at the front of floating continent, you get a character at the back of floating continent. Now I haven't really made progress. I got a bunch of levels out of it, which is great, and then unfortunately now I have to choose between even more places to go to, and the lure of, oh, but that new character's got a faster check, and oh, that guy's got a fast check too. It can be like pretty easy to get seduced into like a character chain where you want to go from 6 to 9 characters, and we still need to look for espers.
Yep. And if we look at Knuckly Kong's screen, we actually had what is it called? French Vanilla Ultros 4. So that is another for the Ultros bingo board as number 3. I would call that French Vanilla because normally Ultros 4 is the fight that you get right at the end of the airship attack sequence before you're knocked off the airship. But instead, he was fought during where you normally fight Air Force, which is after you're knocked off the airship. The big bummer about Ultros... Go for it.
Go ahead. Oh yeah, but for a brief moment, we had all 3 Chatternooks here, and I saw too that we're seeing the Yeti hitting the wrong phase, which can cause them to do some bad stuff and kind of make them stay in that phase a little bit longer. I did see some of our runners trying to use like run buffering. If we're holding run, Umaro won't go, and so it is a way that we can not control them, but at least like hold them back a little bit until we want them to go.
Right. And actually, I was thinking about Knuckly Kong's play here. Well, another thing that's actually really good about this play that I hadn't thought of is that there are 4 bosses, and with the number of bosses, unique bosses that they have to find, 4 boss opportunities is actually pretty huge, especially since I'm looking at the boss tracker. I think most of the runners only have 5 bosses so far. It looks like maybe Zelfer. No, that's Schwanz. Schwanz has 6. But they're still kind of low on the bosses, so this is a pretty good boss density.
Yeah, that boss factor is definitely, I think, and that's a great observation bringing that up, is kind of factors into that decision making where, because dragons don't count as bosses, the bosses inside of Kefka's Tower do, including the toilet Atma spot. So I know a thing, now I'm remembering back to like our Coliseum event. Oh, we got Realm at the Moogle defense spot. Was like thinking about, okay, where am I going to get a couple of bosses? Do I want to like put everyone in my party in the middle lane, go clear that out, and that will get me enough bosses to warp out and then cash in our skip, which is what lets us jump right into skip all the walking around in the first set of like switch hitting in Kefka's Tower and get right into fighting the statues. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that pops up, or if we see, because like a Knuckly Kong making this sort of decision, although I see Schwanz is going up there now too, right after getting Shadow. So interesting.
I was going to comment on that.
Sometimes everyone swerves, and then it's not like a gamble anymore because everyone had the same idea coming into.
Right, and I thought it's very interesting for the Schwanz, because I know the Schwanz actually will do almost everything in his power not to go to Floating Continent. I race him pretty much every week for one of the weeklies that I do. So him going here early, maybe playing against the fact that he would be expected to try to skip this, or maybe he's just like, he's at 6 bosses. If all 4 here are unique, that gets him to 10. That's huge.
Yeah, I see in chat asking, oh, It's a magical master. I don't think we've seen Berserk. We'll find out. So, do we have, and I think this is what Zelfer's checking. Do I have abilities that do non-magical damage? Slot, yes.
We got
Meteor.
Meteor. Yep.
So if we don't have the Berserk, the strategy for Magi Master is carefully choose who's going to do the first attack, because we want to hit him with our absolute biggest shot right away. If I have a shield, I'm cracking it. If that sort of thing, and then from there he's going to rotate to being weak to one element, nullifying 6 of them and absorbing another one every time we hit him. And so from here it's like non-elemental things, defense, piercing, attacks will also work. So if we did have that Admiral weapon offering on someone, that would be good to go. And then other than that, it's kind of like, yeah, survive. Slot is good if we can hit our slots, because we've got a couple in there that will do damage to him. If we have scan, like I have had to resort to like, let me keep scanning this fool until he's weak to an element that I can use and then hit him again. But yeah, we'll have to keep our eye on. A Berserkless Magi Master fight can turn into like a 10-minute affair pretty quickly.
Yeah. Drinks Glue is actually doing something that I was about to wonder if we were going to see. So this is actually pretty cool. He's going into Kefka's Tower early, and he's doing it to get the bosses that he can reach. And this is a really neat play, because then he doesn't have to rely on necessarily guessing like, okay, maybe there are going to be 2 unique bosses in here, or maybe they're going to be 4. He's going to get this out of the way early, and that way he doesn't have to gamble on it. And that's a really cool play, and I was hoping we were going to see that, so I'll have to thank Drinks for doing this.
Yeah, it's really like, this is something that it can vary depending on the flag set, but yeah, I think you hit on it. Whenever there's bosses involved, in addition to the fact that with scaling capping at 50 plus 10 for our bosses, I feel like it's like, I have confidence in my current offense. I'm ahead of scaling right now, so let me go like bop some of these tower bosses. Oh, a repeat.
Yep, we got Chad again.
Which is unfortunate, because that one's not going to count for our boss count. But even if it doesn't, it's like, okay, well now I've cleared out the middle lane of bosses. Fighting Chatternook right now while scaling is probably in the 30s. It's preferable to fighting them at level 60 with like, maybe 1 or 2 of our strong party members under normal circumstance. So yeah, I would agree. I love the play there. Maybe in kind of our standard racing flags, this comes up a lot less often, but that's definitely a heads up to think about. How is this different from what I'm used to? How should I change, like, maybe my approach based on that?
And I just want to point out that I think Danny was just about to announce it too.
I was going to see if I could jump in real quick with an update and a donation, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
We hit our 45 minutes, so we're cutting off the save Sid or don't save Sid incentive, and you can let our runners know we are saving Sid.
All right, I will send that to them right now. Saving Sid.
All right, and real quick, we got a donation in $20 from Meteor9 saying here's 20 towards forced hazard runs in Metroid planets to really make those runners suffer. I am being informed I'm one of those runners. Uh-oh. Hey, we like when runners are willing to suffer for a good cause, so good on you. Appreciate the donation. That means if I'm mathing the math correctly, and don't get doing it on Twitch. I know that's a rule we shouldn't, but that makes us $10 short of that incentive. So if we get another $10 in, we can do as Meteor9 says and make the Metroid Planets runners suffer. So if you just do exclamation donate, if you'd like to put in the $10 towards that, and we will get that incentive done, closed, and then we can start throwing money at the time spinner run, which I'm fairly certain, if I remember correctly, their incentives will also make the runner suffer. It seems like that's a theme today.
what a time spinner. That's fun. Like I play it casually and I really enjoyed it. It's one of those randomizers that I keep like eyeing. It's like someday, you know, and then I like put it back in the drawer where it's like I got all these other ones, but
When it got released, the FFR Discord temporarily became a time spinner Discord because everyone was obsessed with playing it, plays the randomizer, and now they're like a little sister community. And just like you guys are always at our marathon. We consider you guys one too. So it's nice to have you guys back. It's nice to have Time Spinner back. And I'm looking at the madness that Wef and Waffle are running a 1 HP Death Link item link co-op run.
Ooh.
That sounds spicy.
That sounds very spicy. I don't know what half of that means, but I'm actually looking forward to that. I think
Yeah,
we
I feel
do.
like... Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think Time Spinner is part of the Archipelago as well, and we do. Final Fantasy
It
VI Worlds
is.
Collide is also part of Archipelago, so we see it occasionally when we're doing our monthly or our weeklies.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we see
What
Drinks
I'm hearing
Glue.
is we need FF. I say what I'm hearing is we need an FFR, FF6 Worlds Collide, and Time Spinner randomizer archipelago shenanigans.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I like the sound of that.
Okay, I'm going
Yeah.
back in my corner.
Yeah, and shout out to the Schwans 27. I know they've been at work updating the like AP or archipelago version of Worlds Collide up to like the current version um, of the randomizer, and so I know they have a few loose ends to kind of tie up on the code side, but I'm excited to be able to get some of our like flag tweaks
Yeah,
in those multi-world games.
some of the newer flag tweaks when you go back and play Archipelago, you really do miss them. And I'm like, oh, that's right, this is 1.2, not 1.4. But as we can see on Zelfer's screen there, he is currently saving Sid. So for those of you who don't know this, and it was one of those things that growing up and playing this game, I didn't know until I played it again years later. So during the sequence right after the world collapses and you are playing a Celis with Sid on the island, you can save him. And to save him, you have to feed him only the healthy, fast moving fishes. If you feed him the slow moving fishes or even the normal fishes, he will eventually die. And because there's a hidden timer in the background, and I believe it is 2 minutes of in-game time, where
Mhm.
every second his life ticks down by 1, and after 2 minutes time he runs out of health points and dies. But if you give him a fast fish, it gives him a net positive amount of health, so he can just survive longer. And if you get him to, I don't remember what exactly the numbers, but if you get that health high enough, he recovers and is fine. So that's what your incentive was for that you bid for today, is to have all 4 runners save Sid. And Zulfer is well on the way. He's actually getting really good fish RNG, and he just
Ooh.
saved him. So it got his high tier item, and away he goes.
Yeah, I
I
know
think
that was
I,
one of the draft things that they picked, right? Was in addition to the incentive for donations as saving him, and we're going to look. It can be tricky if our inventory isn't in good shape when we get those high tier items to actually know, like, what did I just get? I don't know. I could maybe it was a Magus rod. I'm gonna guess.
yeah, I've been in that situation where I just got something, don't know what it was.
Um, so what do we got here? Is that number or is that another Magi Master?
I Yeah, I could. I will have to wait till he does. Or till yeah, it
Wait,
must be.
freaking hard. It's got to
It,
be. Yeah.
yeah, that's Magimaster. So we got another Magimaster in this here. Oof.
We had Magimaster at home, and now we have Magimaster in tower. But we have more levels. I think they're gonna hit very hard. But with Setzer having the ammo weapon, we've got the Quasar lore, which is non-elemental damage. Unfortunately, Shadow went down because they have throw. One of my personal fave abilities to have on a character. I always tell the Moogles in our new player program, like, throw means go, um, get levels, and that character will be pretty much good to end game. Ideally, we want to find some like ninja stars, but it's a pretty powerful ability, both early and with a little bit of um, optimization. It's like A tier end game offense too.
Yes, we see Flame Eater at the Poltergeist statue spot, so that's good. That's the first time we've seen Flame Eater, so that should bring Drinks Glue up to, boy, his font's tiny, up to 7 bosses. So there's a lot of bosses still to go. I think, I don't know if we'll see Drinks Glue like reform to do the other 2 statues, but that's pretty spicy to be almost at an hour and still need to be finding like 10 bosses. Well, 9 bosses. So we're gonna start seeing them like go hard after any check that has lots of bosses. So they're probably gonna have to pick up more characters than they need just to open up more spots for bosses.
Yeah, and I think, you know, probably bums it Drinks Glue. Like, I still think this was like the good play to make, but just getting 2 duplicate bosses in their journey so far.
Yeah.
Although they got another Mega Elixir and a big pile of experience, and they have advanced information they know
Right.
that the other brothers don't have.
Right. And the other benefit of doing this is that the bosses, the statue bosses, and the Guardian spot boss don't count as checks, so it's free experience without increasing scaling. And I also saw him take the dragons, which dragons do increase scaling, but they offer so much experience that they're almost always a net positive.
Yeah, definitely. They do give a high tier item reward, which is occasionally. And I think they picked a stronger reward pool, and so
Ooh,
we're seeing some more fish feeding.
Yeah, we saw Zelfer just pick up fixed dice in World of Ruin Thamasa.
Well, we have a user of them.
Exactly.
Which is good.
And I think
we have a jump set.
Yeah, we've got a jump set, and we have a natural fixed dice user, so we might be seeing Dragoon dice.
The old sky dice.
Got the
It just feels very anime, right? To like dramatically jump very high in the air and then throw these dice and then after they roll, like the enemy's like, oh, like suffers like mysterious damage out of nowhere.
It feels like a Yu-Gi-Oh anime like syncing.
Yeah.
As Zenobian bringing up in the chat, yeah, throw is great until you get it in a barter seed. Yeah, getting thrown a barter seed always feels like sadness. So barter seed, for those who haven't played one, is all the shops sell everything for a set price, and that price is usually like 2,000 or something. The problem there being is that anything that you sell is still based off that price. So you sell for half price. That means any 2 items in your inventory becomes 1 item in the shop. And that means things like shurikens, which are normally like 21 gold, are 2,000 gold along with everything else. So throw becomes kind of hard to use in that situation.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive. We're pretty much relying on like throwables that we can get from chests. Although at the same time, it means that high damage power throwables are comparatively like cheaper, you know, and so.
Yeah, that's true. Like if you find rags, like you can just throw those if you can pick up a whole bunch of them.
So it's like, yeah, it's much more diminished early that like you could still take a thrower through the seed, but they probably are gonna do nothing until like the final fights, just because the quantity of throwables is really limited.
And we see Zelfer coming back to fight the Guardian at the Falls. That's a good play because we know that that's something he'll be excited to get. Although he'll be less excited to find that nobody can use it.
Yeah.
I've rated mini seeds Illumina that nobody can use out of 10.
Mm-hmm. It's a good rating.
All right, we got Ramu out of the out of random caves, so it's interesting to be seeing a little bit of the Strago checks. Generally, people sleep on those because they're all terrible, but they might be getting to a point where, you know, looking at their check logs, they're starting to run out of things to do. So they're probably at a point where, you know, you're looking for another character to open up some more places where there are bosses.
Oh yeah, we're gonna see collapsing house here.
Yep. So
have we seen that one? Is that the first time?
No, we've seen that's the first time the Schwantz has done, but we've seen collapse
Okay.
on those.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
we got
you
a
can
little
get
bit
a
of
heal
crossover.
there at the end. That's a nice little
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, an interesting thing. Like, oh, you can just heal me up, so then why do I need to pay you for a room when the house isn't collapsing? Can I just give you $5 and have you top me up? No? Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, meanwhile, all the other shops are like, oh yeah, take your time, browse our wares. Like, no worry. Like,
Yeah. No hurry. I'm sure that screen shake has nothing to do with me.
so yeah, Schwan's seeing their Katana Soul. They're gonna see them at much higher levels. So
That's both a good thing and a bad thing, because high-level Katana Soul can be actually pretty terrifying if you don't have what you need to deal with him.
uh, we have Muddle.
Yeah, but you have a much
Oh
better chance.
wow,
Wow, he's not having the best luck there.
he's Gonering, which is
Yeah.
real good. Yeah, with the Yeti and Muddle, it's kind of like we got to confuse him, and then we have to like basically run buffer the rest of it so that our guy won't hit him out of it. Which
Yeah.
at least like even
I
if
would almost
it,
try to run Mario away from that.
yeah, that's what I think is like a Muddle, and then although we might just go for it because
Yeah.
those are some big swings and these are gonna be some big jumps.
We got Knuckly Kong and everybody's favorite check, Burning House. So we're definitely starting to scrape the bottom of the pool here. Burning House is a check. The thing that makes Burning House bad is that there are all these little fires running around, and using the same trick that you use to get past the guards without fighting them at either like Moogle Defense or at Kefket and Arsh. You can do that to the flames. The problem is the flames move in random directions, so it's hard to do on purpose.
Yeah, consistently. It's definitely hard to skip, like, it is like a fixed encounter check, but there's a boss at the end. I think everyone's had their own personal experience of getting all the way through here and then running into a boss that they had no uh, ability to beat. That always feels bad. I like to come here sometimes because everyone doesn't like to come here, so it's another one of those, like, is it the most optimal check? No, but it's also so widely despised that I feel like there's a high chance for me to um, find some value in here that I know a lot of the other racers might not get.
Yeah. The benefit of coming here late like this too is that whatever boss is at the end, you can probably handle it. Coming early, the chance of you finding something that you cannot beat is high enough that I think that turns a lot of people off from using this as a grind spot, because that would be the benefit of coming here early, is that there are all these grind fights, so you can be kind of high level. But if you run into, for instance, Tritalk and you don't have any fire damage or non-elemental damage, that's a reset, and you just wasted all that time farming up all that experience from the fires. So it's like, it's really, let's see what we got. Ifrit. So this is one of those bosses where that if you hit Ifrit here, that could be bad news, except Ifrit and Shiva have a little quirk to them that makes this not all that bad as long as you can survive the fire damage. And I assume you know what I'm talking about, the run glitch.
Yeah, if we hit them a certain number of times with magic or physical, then they switch between the two. And if we're running during the switch and we have filled up like the invisible bar that fills up to let us run, we can essentially run from the battle when they're doing the switch between the two. We don't get any rewards in terms of experience or magic points for the fight. But it's, yeah, in the rare, in those cases where it's like, ooh, I got nothing to damage either of these, we can kind of like plink away until they do the switch and then still get through and get the progression.
Yeah, and it's the interesting thing about Worlds Collide, I guess, is that running from a battle is considered beating it in almost all cases. So, like, if you're doing fixed encounters, you will see our racers like use a smoke bomb or just run away from the battle. That gets rid of the battle as if you had completed it. And that also works for bosses that you can run from, of which I think there's just the one. There might be another one that I'm not thinking of. But again, being successfully out of the battle and alive counts as beating it. So that's really important for, being able to kind of optimize your time. Like, is it worth actually fighting this battle, or is it better to run from it? Because if you run from it, it still counts as getting rid of whatever the impediment was.
Yeah, and it's interesting how like that decision will change too, where at the very beginning of the seed, we run into some leaf or dark winds, and it's like, okay, well, it's still some experience, and I need a level or two, so I'll take this. But then, like later on, it will tend to be like, if it's not worth a ton of experience, like I'm not even gonna mess around and take the time to fight it.
We can see Drinks Glue heading for Floating Continent now, continuing to pummel my wallet with the Ultros with the Ultros bosses.
Yeah, they're really gonna make you cast GP rain all over the donations.
Yeah, it's for a good cause. Hopefully I don't hit the charity too hard with GP rain. But I think once Drinks Glue gets to that fight, that's going to be number 7.
So Knuckly Kong went through the Velt Cave. They saw that it was not an Esper or a character on the ground, and so they knew that meant I'm not getting progression here, and so they warp out and head to a different check.
It's very interesting because Knuckly Kong is at 10 bosses. I'm surprised he didn't do that just to see what the boss was first.
I think with random bosses, maybe like I could see the logic where it's like, well, it's not even a guarantee that the boss there counts.
Right. I was just thinking that, I mean, if you save before you go in the cave, even if if it's a repeat boss, you can just
look at it first. Yeah. And then, I would agree.
But again, maybe he's of the mind that it's better to be making progress on a check that's actually going to give him something, since he still needs to pick up a bunch of espers.
Yeah.
So that might be his thinking, is like, yeah, I can always come back to this if I don't get enough bosses in getting all those espers. Because I think Knuckly's still looking for 4 espers, I believe, looking at his cat tracker here. So, I mean, if every one of those is a unique boss, that gets him up to 14 bosses. So,
right.
Yeah, it's probably kind of an either or play. There's definitely benefits to just noping out of that and just saving it for later.
Yeah, and we know that like checks that don't reward progression still give us pretty good stuff, but I think everyone's getting to the point where it's like, but I already have good stuff for like everyone that needs it.
Yeah, they're pretty loaded, so I'm actually surprised that my brain just stopped. I'm actually surprised that we haven't seen too much action with the Dragoon set that I've seen.
Yeah, another appearance for Magi Master. They're gonna make quite a few. If I would have known random bosses was on, I would have said it probably in advance. I would have made a different where it's like for each time I'll just do it. How many? That's like our 4th time, right? I'm gonna donate $5 every time we get
every Magi Master.
We get a Magi Master. So so that would put me at 20. We'll start tracking how many. We know there's 8 out in the wild based on the information that we have so far.
Yeah, because we got the one here, and then there's the one that they have to fight. That's at, was that Guardian spot?
Yeah.
No, that was at.
There's one in the tower, and there's one. This is the one to get Realm from Moogle Defense, I think is where Schwann's is right now.
Okay.
Nice. So I think that's the other one that we have already seen. I think we got a Prussian range at some point. I guess we didn't really see. We haven't seen a ton of raging there, but definitely Schwann's using heads up rage knowledge to pick a non-elemental like magic defense piercing rage and handling that Magi Master pretty well. Everyone's really got the power to deal with them. It's just a question of like surviving their like taking 2 turns per turn and throwing out like big AoE damage.
Yeah, you kind of reach a point, and I think we're kind of at that with the racers, where you haven't quite gotten the hit points that you need in order to soak everything that a top end boss can throw at you, but you have enough damage that as long as he doesn't do that, you can make it through. That's like when you got high scaling and like random attacks where you waltz into Inferno feeling really good, and then he decides to do back-to-back ultimas on you.
Yeah, we got Knuckly Kong going in Daryl's tomb, which we know it's a Thunder Shield, no
Yep.
progression. I don't think have we seen Esper Mountain yet?
I'm trying to think. Maybe not.
See who's here. That'll maybe
Jog
clue us
memory.
in.
Oh yeah, we have Atma Weapon.
Yeah, okay.
Zelfu did this. Yep. Yeah, big old kitty.
I don't think I've seen anyone look at Fanatic's tower to see.
Right. I don't think we've seen peek of
There's a character
Fanatic's
there.
Tower. And I don't think we've seen anybody do Owsers.
Yeah.
Because Owsers is probably my favorite early game check, but it is not near as good late in the game. So you tend to see it like if you have it early on in your progression available, you'll see a lot of people do it. But for late game, it's often slept on because it's actually pretty slow.
It's a little bit slow. There's a couple of encounters we have to take. I'm a pretty level greedy runner of this game, and so, you know, I could probably maybe go faster sometimes if I would sometimes say no to getting more experience, but so I do kind of still like to go there late because it's like, oh, well, more levels means faster Kefka's Tower generally, but
yeah. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I just saw that Knuckly Kong had somebody learn Ultima.
Ultima, what is that? Is that good? Is that good in this?
Sort of. Ultima is the best spell in the game damage-wise, but it is also, I think, either the slowest or the second slowest spell in the game from an animation standpoint. So it is definitely a problem solver if you run into situations where it's non-elemental damage, so something like, you know, your friend Ghost Train at... Ghost Train? Okay. Did we forget to randomize this? I didn't remember that.
I think we're at the do-over. Started a race over. Something went wrong.
This is obviously we did.
I'll get in the race room, let them know. Right. Be like, we got an error.
Yep. Well, we got Ghost Train at the right spot. This is not good. Anyway,
we don't have no blitz users, so unfortunately we're denied.
Yep. So that means that this seed cannot be validated, and it is a failure for all 4 racers. Sorry, everyone. Could not suplex the train. But we do see somebody finally checking Fanatics, and it is a character. We got Edgar at Fanatics, so that's what everybody was looking for right now, is that next character to get them more boss spots.
Yeah, which Edgar only has the 1 out of all of their checks.
Yeah, I mean, it's still 3 checks, but it is only 1 boss. So that's probably not what you want to see, but there's almost certainly gated by Edgar, unless there's another character at Owsers, which I think is the only other check that we haven't seen.
Yeah, and Realm was not like one of our opening characters, so it's certainly possible that like there's another character there that might lead to a different path to the end of the seed.
Yeah. Although I'm just looking at the tracker, nobody I think has done both of Gao's checks.
Oh yeah, we haven't seen the trench.
Yeah.
Or
the dried meat. I don't know if they've even I don't know if they've picked up dried meat. So yeah, that could also provide progression. The problem with that is that they don't provide. There's no bosses in either of those checks. So that's probably why nobody's done them.
And everyone has fought random encounters. I don't know if we have any that were like are real bad. That's kind of the like. We like to go to the Veld early, particularly if we fought nothing, because then we just have to fight Lobos to get Gao to show up. But, you know, if we've only fought, like, White Dragon and, like, like Enox, then we're just going to get, like, super long fights that don't guarantee to have Gao show up. And so... And the Serpent Trench is also kind of a long check where you have to fight a bunch of stuff. So,
yeah, it's definitely one that's great early, and then it falls off quite a ways.
But sometimes it can be the play where it's like, oh, I got Esper off the Veld, and also the Serpent Trench was an Esper, and it's another one of those where it's like, oh, people probably aren't going to go here late. Maybe I'll go there late to kind of just like play like the odds that
And
you'll get a
if you're
hit that somebody else won't.
and if you're at the point that they are, where they're really starting to hunt for those last bosses, just at least even peeking like the Velt check for Gao, just to see if it's a character that has a lot of fast bosses, might be something you would think of doing. But we can also see the Schwantz taking. Oh, there's another Magimaster. See the
All right,
Schwantz going
25.
into KT. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Going into KT to kind of clean it out and check the bosses there. I think he needs, what, 3 more bosses? Yeah, he needs 3 more bosses, so he's probably hoping that these are what he needs.
Yeah, Knuckly Kong running into one of our resident troublemaking bosses, Poltergeist, aka the Spicy Chicken. They're only going to get worse as the scaling goes up. They're a boss that at high enough levels do hyperdrive and Ultima. Fighting them is always not that fun, especially in the tower where we're not even fighting them with like a full party,
Yeah. I just realized that I can see why the Schwantz is doing this. The Schwantz is actually, if he gets 3 unique bosses in the statue spots, he's in go mode. I was just checking his tracker.
And we know that in the middle path, there's only 1 unique boss out of the 3.
So those wings need to be uniques for him. And we know that the Inferno spot is also duplicate, but I don't think we saw Toilet Atma yet. So he may have to walk all the way back to Toilet Atma if there's a duplicate on one of the wings. Oh, and we see Zelfer heading into KT as well.
Yeah, Doomgaze goes down, Poltergeist goes down. Magimaster is close.
Yeah, we saw a whole bunch of really nasty bosses on the screen all at the same time there.
Yeah, when we're getting this high up in the scaling, a lot of times it's more of like we're kind of damage racing, where it's just like, we gotta take this person down as fast as possible, because they're just gonna hit us especially when they start doing like things that damage aren't mitigated by equipment as well. Like that's when it's really like, can I live? Another Chad appearance. There, yeah, that's another one we saw doubled up on. Ooh, the Yeti. Not triggering a counter from their big Atma swings. I know our Umaro fans are going to be loving to see how much work the Yeti is putting in with that Atma weapon.
Yeah, and before the race, there was an agreement between all of our racers to keep Umaro in the party the entire way, much to the Schwantz's chagrin.
Yeah, Drinks Glue loves to slide into these with like some gentleman's agreements that he proposes like half an hour before the race, sort of thing. Like, I think that's like one of his signature moves. But yeah, so they've all agreed to take him to the finish line, which is one of those where it's like, for the most part of the run, it's not really an issue. When we get into the tiers of Kefka that have very bad counterattacks that we try to avoid, that's where it can potentially be bad. Like, I would say the biggest example might be where we actually need Umaro to swing his Atma weapon, and he does his like tackle attack instead for less damage. And instead of like killing Kefka, we take a Medio maybe that we weren't prepared for, or even more heartbreakingly, we get an Ultima counter. With the scaling, I don't know if that's going to be as scary, because I imagine they're going to be like level 50 fighting Kefka, and so we'll generally have the HP pool to, with like a full party up, absorb an Ultima now.
Yeah,
we don't always get a full party climbing up all the way to tier 4, and
right.
and that's where
I was going to say our Our hit points are looking a little marginal. Generally, I think in Ultima, if it hits the whole party, it does around, 3,200 each.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a few characters who can soak that. I think Zelfer's got some of the highest level characters out there right now. Zelfer could probably soak that, at least on Setzer and maybe Sabin and Mog.
Yeah, I saw Drinks Glue pulled an Esper off of the Velm. So we did see that is an Esper. Oh, speaking of the Ultima, Inferno doing it.
Ooh, but he soaks it. That's cool. Fortunately, Inferno, while scary, is not as. Oh, so we got Retainer Marshals. That is a scary fight, given that he's only got two characters there.
I would be looking. Hopefully, maybe we have. This is another time to bust out like Golem or Fenrir, because Retainers, when they die, do a counterattack that's an instant kill, but it has to hit. And so, having one of those up makes it this trade-off perfectly safe. Because the danger here, especially with two parties, if we would have killed, never mind. Because
yep, that Retainers are so nasty. With you,
I think they're gonna get through it on the second try, because they're
Yeah.
gonna go move an Esper over to someone, and then it won't be an issue. But yeah, that's one. Unlike and because this got added in between, in one of the past couple versions, the Moogle defense check, which put the Marshal boss like back into the boss pool, and the flag that we have, instead of just coming with two Lobos, which at this scaling would hit like trucks, so they still wouldn't be like pushovers necessarily. But they've been replaced with basically like high tier. He comes with high tier enemies instead, so we can see like Tyrannosaurs, or this is kind of some of the worst ones we can see.
Yeah, Retainers. Oh,
trade off. Yeah,
double trade off. That's not good.
We either can't kill him at the same time, or we have to have some way to mitigate that. Drake's Glue going to the opera house to try, not opera, auction house, to try to find an Esper. And instead they're finding the Imp robot. This is a reason that some of our runners, I have a lot of traumatic auction house and race experiences where it's like, oh, I only need one more Esper. I have the levels I need. I'm just going to go here, and just getting Imp robot after Imp robot. Other runners, we have a term for this. It's called Zelfer luck. Just run in there, and on the first try, it's like, here's your Esper right away. Here you go. Have a nice day. And so it's one for me that I tend to do everything in my power to find an Esper any other place. Although I think I've been trying a little bit, put it back into my consideration pool. Drink's finding it on their second try, which is not.
That's not too bad.
Not too bad.
We also had Knuckly Kong going down to the engine room and finding yet another punch straight to my wallet with an Ultros 4 down there with all the tentacles.
Speaking of punches to the wallet, can I jump in real quick with a donation?
Absolutely.
You set that up real well, thank you. I swear hosting is kind of like playing double dutch. You're just kind of waiting on a moment to jump in. So we got a $100 donation from Ale saying, it's been awesome watching all these great runners and crew members coming together to support such a great cause. Here it's $10 towards Metroid Planets, $60 for Time Spinner, and $30 towards host choice for the FFR bonus race. Those donations to Metroid Planets and Time Spinner completely meets those incentives, so those both have been met. And whatever y'all would like to put that $30 towards, if you want to maybe look at it after the run for the FFR bonus race, let us know, and we will get that allotted to the proper place. But thank you, Ale. That closes out those incentives. So still happy to take donations. That also got us past our current goal. So thank you, Ale. Still accepting donations. So I mean this in the nicest way possible, but if you got the money to spare, we'll gladly take it. Please and thank you. Okay.
Yeah, let's push that number higher. It does look like, I'm just looking at the screen here, there's a couple of those bonus run incentives. I've played FFR 1 Rando twice. I did like the beginner vanilla Rando playthrough, and that was helpful to learn where to go for the things. And then I've done another one, that was actually like randomized, and it was a good time. But I guess for our viewers and me, if I want one that's going to really make our runners suffer between, I've seen confused old men. I know Long Topher is like a longer final dungeon, so that seems
Mhm.
pretty bad. And then there was another one about forcing a white mage. So like kind of those three, if I have to pick one to get, maximum runner suffering value, which one should I choose?
Well, Rocktober, like you said, they have short on, which makes the longer dungeon significantly longer. And if it rolls the bosses in their rolls bad, it's bad times for everyone involved. And they are doing a save swap, which means every so often randomly at a time that I choose, they have to switch their save swaps. So a bad dungeon could be really, really bad. So that's probably where you're gonna get the most bang for your buck if you wanna make that run a little more harder on our
Hmm.
boys.
Good to know. I mean, the two of us are obligated to donate because of all these Magi Master and Ultros appearances. So we need some intel of where to allocate our GP rain. And I see here on Schwanz's screen, using the Vanish spell to duck those trade-offs, changing their approach. See in chat who's winning. I don't know. What do you think, Taco Mage? It can be hard.
Looks like Zelfer's actually in full go mode and getting on switches, so I think it's Zelfer right now.
Okay. Is
Um,
Schwanz also in there, like,
he
go
is.
mode, or are they still hunting bosses?
I think he's still hunting one more boss after this one. Retainer was one that he needed, so I think if the left wing is a unique boss, he will be in full go mode. So it's very close, but I think Zelfer's already got his bosses because he's already got one person on the switch. Generally, if you go and try to get on switches and you're not in go mode, you bounce off and the screen flashes red and it says KT unlock criteria not met. So the fact that he's already on a switch means that he's got the bosses. And I think it was because he actually did Toilet Atma, and Toilet Atma was something. I don't remember. Oh, and we have 128 at left statue, so this is Swance's go mode.
And they are like split up, like, doing regular style kind of Kefka's Tower. So I imagine that they're also just gonna push and go. So it's pretty close between, I think, the two of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think before the Schwantz hit that trouble with the retainers, I think he was in the lead, but I think Zelfer's narrowed the gap in those couple of resets that Schwantz needed to take. And Drinks Glue is getting in there too, so he's right on their heels. And he's already cleared out center, so he only has to do the wings. So, like, at this point, Drinks Glue, the Schwantz, and Zelfer are all very close.
Yeah, as to be expected, definitely. Like, I know I've had to race against Drinks Glue in my division, in
My
the Ultros
condolences.
League. They are heading up to the top division. Schwantz and Zelfer have both been up there as well. Knuckly Kong definitely like a rising talent and a fast runner. Like, I've seen them improve significantly.
Oh no!
Big Yeti lover. Maybe if they didn't love the Yeti so much, their times would be a little bit faster sometimes. But it's about having fun too. So that's important as well.
Yeah, the Schwantz has rename cards. That's going to slow him down.
Yeah, but it's definitely.
I mean, it's required. He is our community leader, but this is letting Zelfer get a few seconds on him.
Yeah, it's like, we never know how close it is, and so
Yeah.
I think sometimes too it's like, well, this is, this one's not like a race that's going to count in any sort of record anywhere. It's a fun showcase. I know Drinks Glue and marathon runs likes to show off, some of the like lesser known treasure chests, or do just some of like, the more obscure sort of things. And I'll be curious if we see any additional renaming of our like main party to thank anyone, or I know what I do sometimes. We'll just like rename the final four after everyone in the race.
So we are heading into Final Kafka, both the Zelfer and the Schwantz, with Drinks Glue also getting in there right now. So now's a good time to talk about this final boss. It is a 4-phase boss, and currently we see Zelfer in the first phase. The first phase has 3 parts to it. You've got that big beefy arm close to the screen, that little one far away from the screen, that would be on the guy's left, and the head. That part of the fight, it was cleared really quickly by Zelfer. The head is weak to fire, the big arm is weak to instant death, and the left arm punches really, really hard. The issue with that boss being that if you take out the head last, it will counter with a very, very dangerous Quake spell, which will hit your entire party. Now, they've got pretty good hit points, so it probably wouldn't have been a problem, but in like an Ultra League race, that can be really, really dangerous, and it can wipe your party. So generally the order is you take out the long arm if you've got something that does instant death to it. You take out the head with whatever you can. If you've got fire, great. And then you take out that big old hitty arm last. But I'll pass it over to Fitz for Tier 2 as we see Zelfer getting into it.
Yeah, Tier 2, so kind of bottom right, that we got Tiger. They are weak to ice. They do a lot of annoying things. We generally prioritize after using instant death to get rid of tools, who's kind of like the person in red that's like in the middle of the top, or top middle, I guess. Tiger can inflict zombie on a character. They love to do it to our like big weapon characters, and zombies can attack our party randomly. So we'll see trying to burst them down. The person in the back, that's Magic. They are very annoying. They'll cast Life 3 on other parts. They'll spam high tier spells like this Pearl we're seeing. We can mute them, so that's one of the tools we're usually looking for. They also, I think, when they get under half health, will start countering with these quarters and dispels. So it really will chop down our hit points quickly. So if we can't mute them, they're kind of our next like focus. And the big thing that generally our runners are also trying to avoid is the blue fella. We call them hits. When they run out of hit points, they do a move called 10 hits, which is 10 punches randomly scattered throughout the party. If we get one of those after Magic does their quarter, and they will potentially do that as their own death counter, it can easily just wipe the whole party. So we try to kind of manage it so we're not killing both of them at the same time, and that way we can move up unscathed. If we lose a party member and the transition to the next tier happens, they are out for the remaining fights, and someone off the bench who's typically not equipped or very powerful is coming in to take their place. So we try to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, and this is also one of the times where the Yeti can get you into trouble, because if you just killed Magic and the Yeti's already queued up with an attack, that can bring 10 hits right back into your face. Anyway, now we see Zelfer going to Tier 3. Tier 3 is you've got at the back Girl or Lady, and then at the front you've got Sleep. He's got that big old comfy looking blanket on him. This fight, you want to take out Girl at the back first. The problem there is that she absorbs all types of elemental magic, but you can take her down with non-elemental attacks and physical attacks. You want to take her out first, because if you kill Sleep while she's still alive, she casts Life 2 on him, and that brings him back at full hit points. Sleep is pretty... Until the end, he's not too bad, but he's got a couple of really nasty attacks. He can Whirlwind, which quarters everybody's health. He's got the ability to put Condemned on you, which puts a countdown timer to your death. But the real problem is once you get him under 10,000 health, At that point, he can start countering with either Train or Meteo. Train, it actually blinds and mutes your entire party, and we're seeing it come out right now. Whereas Meteo is a non-elemental, very low accuracy magic attack that does a tremendous amount of damage. And once you get him under 10 health, he will also use those as part of his regular attack pool, so he gets very dangerous. But then we get Calmness right at the end, but as you can see, we had Fenrir up, so the Calmness just missed. That's why we want Calmness protection, and again, Golem and Fenrir are the two best sources of that. You dodge that Calmness so the character doesn't die. But I am a big advocate that one of the best Calmness protection is to get lucky. I have actually done very well in races where I had no Calmness protection and I just full sent and I got the block. Because you can block Calmness. It's just a standard physical block. So anyway, we're moving on to Kefka. I'll head it back over to Fitz.
Yeah, so we're moving up to the top. The final one, the winged angel phase, the two winged angel phase of our Kefka fight. They have an absolute boatload of experience that we need to get through. They, on their first turn, will use a move called Fallen One. Fallen One reduces our party to 1 hit points. There are a couple ways we can get around that. If we do enough damage on our opening turn, they will skip doing that and go into a charging phase to get ready to do a move, which we saw, I think, at least on one screen, Goner. On Drinks Glue side, we saw the head pop up. That's where we know they're about to do that next. They have a lot of nasty counterattacks. They're going faster than I can even explain the fight.
Yeah. Drinks Glue just got the cracks pal. Holy cow, that was Drinks Glue came out of nowhere.
Yeah, definitely. Offering Atma weapon, very powerful. Focusing with Setzer, pretty much taking him down with 2 swings. But Kefka can do some nasty stuff when they are able to counter. They will do hyperdrive, and then when they get under, when they're in their last 10,000 hit points, they add Ultima to that counter pool. But they didn't really have a chance because of there kind of is a little bit of a trend of like, if we have higher scaling, we will end up with higher levels at the end. The final Kefka fight, thank goodness, is not scaled in the same way. So they're always at a kind of a predictable power level. And so with the extra levels, a lot of the times it's more about managing this fight versus flags that leave us at lower levels here could be like, do I really have enough power to get all the way up to the top and finish this thing? But definitely very close race here. We're gonna have the 3 finish within a minute of each other.
Yep, we got Zelfer coming in here with just a little over 30 seconds behind Drinks Glue. That was really close. And we got the Schwantz coming in just another 50 seconds behind him. So a very, very close finish here from 3 racers. And we got Knuckly Kong charging in right behind him, finishing up the last of the statue bosses. So I think by the end of here, we're all going to be within probably 10 minutes of each other. That was a great race. And we got, looks like we got some of our racers trickling in. GG, gentlemen.
GG's.
GG's indeed.
So I guess we'll toss it out to Glue first as the winner of the race. How'd you feel that went? What'd you think?
I think that was an awkward feeling because I know we don't have our trackers on screen, but I had 3 espers at 1 hour and 10 minutes, and that's just not a good feeling.
No.
No, not at all. But luckily, I dove the tower with the intention of, as soon as I found 6 characters, with the intention of, hey, if I do this now, every boss I take doesn't increase my scaling, but I have the experience egg on Zetzer, who is a few fights away from being a monster. So that's what I did. Schwantz, I found that Magi Master. That's why I was like, thanks, Knuckly.
Yeah.
You're a real good friend.
There was 2 of them in this seed.
Well, I found the one in the tower while I was like level 27.
there was 2 of them this seed, and awkwardly enough, the Magi Master wasn't the problem in Kefka's tower for me anyway. It was a different boss on the other side of the tower.
That was
a bit of a problem.
Have a time with the retainer marshals getting just traded off over and over again until they finally got invisible about it and were able to live through the counters.
I thought I had like a Galaxy Smooth Brain play, and I'm like, oh, I have a Memento ring. Let's put this on. That means Mog will never die, right? Wrong. So yeah, it took me about what 5 tries to get through that fight. So that was the bottleneck for me for this seed for sure. I think Glue, your approach of going in the tower as soon as you get 6 characters is probably a really good idea. I was always worried in the back of my mind, how many duplicate bosses am I going to find in Kefka's Tower, and am I going to have to do a walk of shame out of here? So I took a couple of extra bosses that I didn't have to, including going back on the Phantom Train to kill the Ghost Train boss, and then taking the fight in the sky that I knew I didn't need, but wanted to make sure that I was definitely not going to have to go back into the tower twice.
Yeah,
So I,
fortunately, I knew the retainers were there because I had peeked them during my
Yeah,
walkthrough. Just in,
yeah.
so I it was 128 retainers, so I just had in the back of my mind. If I see those later on, I have to go in with 15, or if I find both of them, then I have to find 16 outside the tower. So
Yep.
so along with all that, so how do we feel about that Illumina that nobody could use?
But listen. We had a racers agreement at the beginning of the seed that we were going to use Umaro no matter what, and I said, you know what? If we're going to use Umaro, I might as well use Gao with Rage the entire seed too. Let's make this a double Berserk party for the entire seed. And Gao could use the Illumina, so that was
could
an
he?
even bigger incentive to do
Yeah.
it. So that's why I was like, you know what? Let's just put my hand off the controller for half the turns in this race. Let's play that way. Your other alternative, I guess, was going to get Edgar at the top of Fanatic's Tower or the bottom of Fanatic's Tower, depending upon how you looked at it. But when you already have 8 characters, that's not looking pretty nice either.
I think we saw Zelfer do the Fanatics Tower play. Speaking of which, Zelfer is in the chat with us as well.
GG, Zelfer.
GG, Zelfer. How did you feel about the seed?
Thank you. Much appreciated. And GG's to everybody else as well. Well, the seed was kind in some ways and extremely, extremely unkind in other ways. So I guess it all balances out. overall, I felt pretty good about it. Couple moments give me heart attacks, but other than that, everything went pretty smoothly. Not too bad. I do think I caught the tailwind of a super awesome strategy that I didn't even think about going to the tower super early to peek the bosses.
Yeah. I think I did that in the submission race, actually, and I just forgot about it this time. But Drinks Glue with the tier 1 number 1 strategies, that's why he came in first place this race.
That is absolutely the best strategy I've ever heard. I'll have to remember that for the future.
I get that a lot.
Yeah, it was really interesting because Drinks Glue started executing it right before I was going to bring it up as something that the runners might consider doing. And I was like, well, Drinks Glue beat even me to that idea. I'm not even playing. All
Yeah,
right,
so early on, I saw that we had Mog as one of our starting characters, and then we had that Dragoon set for 2 dragons. So I did that right away, and I got an experience egg from the Dirt Dragon at like 15 minutes in, and I'm like, all right, so maybe I made the huge, really nice, smart play. But turns out that Glue made the best play all along.
Well, I wouldn't say that because it was at like 27 minutes. I was like level 7, and I just had 4 characters. I thought about climbing. I was going to climb Lone Wolf, but Zaven was at College and Inn right away, so I was like, all right, well, I can't do Lone Wolf. Let me do other stuff, but nothing. Imperial Camp didn't work out, and then I got walled by Guardian, so I had to walk around Daryl's tomb for a while, just getting levels.
That's
That was
Yeah, but
getting
the
pushed
3 of
around a
you
little bit.
were so close at the end. I will say I kind of want to give the edge to the Schwants who use their rename cards to.
That's
right
it. That's
before
why I
the
lost the
switches
memes.
to send a message. Because you and Zelfer were like neck and neck, and then you went in like a rename cards amount of time behind. Drinks came in third, but like their Setzer with that Emma offering just absolutely shredded everything, and so they were able to finish tier 4 before I could really explain what that
was going
tier
on.
could even like do. So it was like, okay, well, Fallen 1, nope. That's not gonna happen. Okay, he's gonna start countering. Nope. There's the there's the Goner charge. They could counter with Ultima. Nope, he's dead.
I was staring at Zelfer's screen going, oh yeah, let's talk about tier 4, and then I looked up at Drinks Glue doing like what is it, 8,000 damage times 4 with Setzer, and I'm like, well, this is gonna be over quick.
Wow. Yeah, I ditched Setzer for Gao because I saw that Yeti could use the Atma weapon, and I was like, well, if there's one weapon that I want Umaro to use, then this is the one. So my Umaro turned into Chewbacca this seed, the Yeti with the lightsaber, if you will.
Well, there were two. I got one from I got one in the chest, I think, in somewhere in the normal beginning looting path, and I got another one from a dragon or a reward.
Yeah.
My first 4 checks were all elemental shields, also.
So Zelfer, you did do Fanatic's Tower. Did Edgar have Blitz as a command?
I actually did not do Fanatic's Tower.
Oh.
I instead went Burning House.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. I must got that mixed up. I must have been Knuckly who did Fanatic's Tower. Because we did see it. I just mixed up who did it. So Knuckly is now heading into tier 4, so he should be done very shortly here. Although he did lose Setzer on tier 3 to Calmness.
Yeah, as soon as we got Sabin, I was hoping and praying we'd find a Blitz user for the memes, of course, but that just didn't happen.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we did see a ghost train that did not get suplex, so that did kind of cost you guys all the seed. So you all actually took a loss.
That's my fault, guys.
So,
but you guys...
how many Ultroses did we fight though? Let's answer the real hard hitting questions. Taco Mage, how? I did 2.
You found 2? I only found 1.
My count of across all of you, it looks like 7, unless chat wants to keep me honest.
I think it was 17, actually.
Oh, was it 17?
We forgot to carry the 1, actually.
Oh, okay.
So close to 7.
It was carrying the 1 over from one of the previous races.
There you go.
No, because everybody found the Ultros going to floating continent. There was an Ultros in a cave somewhere. I can't remember which one. And then Knuckly Kong actually went down and did engine room in South Figaro Castle, and there was Ultros 4 down there as well.
Yeah, I think mine was in Ebbett's Rock, maybe? Was that the only one?
Yeah,
that
that's right. It was
Rock?
Ebbett's Rock. Yeah, I think you're correct.
No, I didn't do Ebbett's Rock, but I had 2. Maybe.
Oh. So then, yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch. But yeah, I saw. Like I said, again, now I'm gonna look over at chat. Chat isn't correcting me, so it's looking like 7.
Uh-oh. Yeah, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. This is fine. Everything's
okay.
fine.
You know what? I think it was at Mount Colts.
Oh, yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. Sounds good.
And there's Knuckly. GG, sir.
GG.
I take full responsibility for that seed.
Good.
Did anyone else find 7 characters that all used lore?
I found 4 lore users.
Listen, the early game exploder strats got me through some of those Imperial camp fights, okay? Don't sleep on lore.
I ended up with 10 characters.
Did any of them have Blitz?
No.
Darn.
Oh, unwinnable seed.
Yeah, we'll have to come back again next year and do it again, huh? Hint, hint, wink, wink.
I'm all for it. I had 3 Illuminas and 3 Atma weapons. And no one could use an Illumina until I put Edgar in the party.
The Swans actually discovered that Gao could use the Illumina.
Yeah, I had Gao.
Oh, I had Gao as well, but I didn't put him in the party. Because he couldn't swing a sword.
Well, so I used Illumina Gao with Prussian Rage, so it was going to hurt either way. And actually, he carried me through the Magimaster fights that we had with Landslide. So, thank you, Gao, my true MVP.
Magimaster, I used Yeti and Edgar. Edgar was using GP Rain, and then Yeti was just doing Yeti things. Found an early Rage Ring. Found a lot of elemental shields. So I had full Merton protection, a couple Minervas that I think only Mog could wear, at least in my party.
Sounds about right.
Um, Yeti was swinging an Atma, Setzer was swinging an Atma. Shadow was just kind of there. He was throwing stuff. I threw Illuminas and Aura Lances. I did eat an Ultima counter, so that was fun.
Now you don't have to go get dinner. You're good.
But overall, I think it was a fun seed. There was definitely room for improvement on my end. I couldn't find the 8th Esper. I knew that the Zen Thief was an Esper, but all of the quicker checks yielded more characters. And then there was a lot of repeat bosses, so I was worried that statues were going to be repeat bosses as well.
I think we fought 12 individual tentacles.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yep. And then I ran into Ultros 4 a couple times.
Yep, and there were Magimasters everywhere.
Two Magimaster.
I only
was
found
there more
one
than two?
Magimaster.
No,
I
I
guess
think
I'm
there-
lucky then.
Two
Oh, no, I
Magimasters feels like Magimaster everywhere.
Yeah.
I talked myself into like donating for Magic Master, so I think I over donated for 8 because I was like, I know I saw 2 on at least 3 screens, so I
Yep.
felt I needed to, you know, reward y'all's suffering when I was seeing there was
Thank you
many,
for that.
so many of those.
Oh,
Long as
and
someone benefits.
yeah, right. As long as the charity benefits, I will fight Magimasters.
Yes.
Thank you, Fitz and Taco Mage, for doing commentary for the race. Also, thanks to the other fellow runners running with us. It looks like it's going to be a good one to watch back, so I'm really excited. Thank you, Final Fantasy randomizer community, for allowing us to have this marathon or this entry into the marathon. Really appreciate it. And thank you again so much.
Maybe Glue, do you want to pump the site?
I'd love to do some shameless plugs. If you saw like what you saw on screen today, and you were interested in getting started yourself in playing Worlds Collide, you can head on over to ff6worldscollide.com, as I think Schwantz spelled out, missing an L before he took on his final fight, but that is ff6worldscollide.com. That is where you can find the link to the Discord, our wiki, how to roll seeds. But if you need some actual more help, join our Discord. We have more than a handful of people standing around willing to help you out, willing to lend a hand to get you going. And we also have a new player tournament similar to the FF1R Duckling Derby. We call it the Moogle Cup, in which you can be paired with a more seasoned player to help you get going, learning the ins and outs, just get playing. A nice introduction to racing, similar to what you saw on screen. So again, one more time, ff6worldscollide.com.
All right. Any more shout outs that anybody wants to do before we call it for the evening and let the marathon get on with it?
Yeah, I'll just double shout out the new player mini tournaments that we had. We just had our first one. Several of the racers here today were mentors in that, and it was a lot of fun. And I know we saw the participants really over the course of that like month-long mini tournament learn a lot and improve a lot each week. So if you've been kind of watching a lot, always kind of been like, I feel like this would be fun, I should check that out, definitely do it. And we've got everything there to help you get up to speed pretty quickly and feel like you can start racing alongside us.
As someone who works on the marathon every year, I just want to say thanks so much. Your community is always incredibly supportive of our marathons. You have been from the beginning. and we love having y'all around. So thank you so much again for being here this weekend. It is very, very, very appreciated.
While we're thinking, thank you, Danny, for being our host this evening and doing our donations.
Yes, a
I
big
sure
thank you
did.
to everyone involved.
All right. Well, thanks again to the Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide community. Real quick, I'm gonna read off. Speaking of donations, we got two in right at the end of the run, but I didn't want to interrupt, so we're gonna read them off real quick. Holy Fire, $20 donation saying, "Is this even randomized?" And a $40 donation from One Free Fits. Why does that name sound familiar? I've always had a great time participating in this marathon, using our love of these games to raise money for a great cause. We saw 8 Magic Masters this seed, so here's $5 for each. Put this towards that long Topher bonus run. Quick question while I got you here, Fitz. Is that in addition to the 30 from before?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh boy, we're $10 from a long Topher on that bonus run to Wednesday. Yeah, that's Wednesday. Oh, those boys are in for something. Good job, Fitz. I approve. All right, we're gonna head out of here real quick. We have a quick setup for the next run. Metro Planets is up next. Before that, we might have a special guest come in and chat with Fizzle. But we will be back shortly. Everyone stay tuned, and we will see you in a few.